My father never trained weights. You know, he'd done a little bit of boxing and back in the day, but he's primarily my whole family's involved with rugby. But I thought, you know what? I got to get these legs big.
Ronnie Coleman played middle linebacker at Grambling State, I believe. And then Jay Cutler was a fullback on his high school football team. And you were a rugby player, which is,
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of the closest allegory to American football, I think, in Wales. And you talked about one of the things I thought was really interesting, because I was a guy who grew up, I'm Colombian, with a big lower body and a small upper body. Jay talked about he didn't work out on his upper body. He didn't work out his lower body for 3 years till his upper body caught up. You started off just wanting to do legs because you said when you're 15 years old, you found a Tom Platz book where you saw how big the guy's legs were and you knew it would help you with rugby.
He was 12.
You were 12.
It was 12, and I was this nosy little kid going through my auntie's room. She was actually, to backstep, she went to a seminar that Tom Platz held in London. She was she was in nursing school. She went through that. Then she went into, let me think what she went, tropical medicine. So she was really specializing in something unique. And she attended one of these seminars. Tom Platz back in the early 80s was doing like a world tour, and a lot of people talked about this guy. The posters are up around the campus. So she said, let me go and see what this is all about. She went. She thought the guy was very educational, very knowledgeable, the American accent and everything else like that in London. And she bought his book. He signed it. She took it back to Wales, went to my grandmother's house, put it in her room, in her like book collection. And I used to stay at my grandparents' house every weekend. And me being the nosy little kid, rummaging through some stuff, I found this book, I pulled it out, and it blew my mind.
Yeah.
And Tom Platz obviously was known for his legs. So I took that book home, and my father never trained weights. He'd done a little bit of boxing and back in the day, but he's primarily my whole family's involved with rugby. But I thought, you know what? I got to get these legs big.
Yeah.
So there was a set of weights, old corroded Weider weights. Can you remember the old plastic coated ones?
Oh my God, man, for sure.
The old school.
What was it? Was it metal in those things?
I don't know what the hell was in it. Was it sand? And
it was something really
dust?
hard. Yeah. I remember the Proxy
concrete.
ones. Yeah,
I don't know, but
they weren't coated in rubber like they are now.
No,
like you would just die if it landed on your foot. They had to take your foot off. It's not like it is now with the rubber.
I think if an asteroid hits the world, them things are still going to be intact.
Sure.
I think these things are unbreakable.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I went up into the shed where my father kept the weights, and in my house, the lower level is the house, and there's a set of concrete steps, and then it goes up to my garden.
Yeah.
So the shed is on the top, and I remember just pulling this brick in the lock first. Brick in the lock, pulling the weights out of the shed, and then thinking, oh shit, I haven't put this plan together. I got to get this down the steps, through the house, up the stairs, into my room. Managed to do it just before my parents came home from the supermarket. I put them weights under my bed, and this was the old barbell. I remember to this day, corroded collars on the end. Couldn't pull the weights off at all. Whatever was on was what I was going to lift.
Yeah.
Remember having the strength to just put it on my bed and looking at Tom Platz squatting. I had no form, no YouTube back then. I was like, okay, this is how he does it. So I remember just leaning my back to the bed, pulling this weight on my back, getting it up. I was like, okay, he looks like he's sitting down. To this day, it's so vivid. 1 rep turned to 2 reps, and this went on and on and on for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then my father burst through the door.
And found out.
Well, there was a lot of huffing and puffing coming from that room.
He thought you were doing something else.
I think, hey, listen, this is not that podcast, but nonetheless, it aligns with it. He thought, what the hell is going on? This young 12-year-old kid going on 13, hormones through the roof. And there I was, squatting. I think came in blindfolded. And he was like, relieved. Yet he was like, hey, no weights. And of course, my mother being a nurse at that time, she's like, oh, it's going to stunt your growth.
Yeah.
Little did she know, and we're all like 5'6", so I had no hope in hell.
Yeah.